Hey everybody, welcome to the Song Revolution podcast, brought to you by Nashville Christian Songwriters. Nashville Christian Songwriters exists to empower Christian songwriters worldwide. I'm John Chisholm, and this podcast exists to bring you valuable songwriting insights, inspiration, interviews, and just all around good fun with some of the greatest songwriters, producers, arrangers, artists, and creatives, and beyond. You can find out a whole lot more about us at NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com. Hey everybody, John Chisholm here. Welcome to another great week on the Song Revolution podcast. And I've always got to sing it like that little bitty guy on the Dr. Pepper commercial. And you know who I'm talking about. Well, hey, I've got Dan Keene on the show today. You're going to really love Dan. Dan is a Belmont University educator. And if you don't know about Belmont, it's one of the most popular music business schools in the country. And it's right here in Nashville. Sits at the top of Music Row, which is kind of, apropos because Dan has been a long time music industry professional on the row. He had a 15-year tenure as an executive at the American Society of Composers, Authors, and Publishers, known as ASCAP, where he signed incredible people to ASCAP, including the band Paramore, RCA country superstar Chris Young, Songwriter of the Year Ashley Gorley, Rivers Rutherford, Rachel Thibodeau, Kyle Jacobs, Bluegrass icons Nickel Creek and Cherry Holmes, and Dove Award-winning artists Mercy Me, Brandon Heath, and Francesca Battistelli. And I bet there's a whole bunch more people he didn't put on this bio. He's got an extensive publishing career with Meadowgreen Music, Sony, and Sparrow EMI, and his own songwriting has resulted in an ASCAP Award, a #1 Christian song, and songs on Grammy-nominated albums. And he's also recorded 2 albums as an artist. In 2010, Dan was appointed to the full-time faculty at Belmont after teaching there as an adjunct for 16 years and serving on the board of advisors of Belmont's Mike Curb College of Entertainment and Music Business. He got his master's degree there at Belmont, and he was inducted into Kappa Delta Pi, the International Honor Society of Education. In 2013 and 2015, Dan was named a finalist for Belmont's Presidential Faculty Achievement Award. He's been on the board of directors for the International Bluegrass Music Association, was their secretary for many years, and he's also served on the Gospel Music Association's board and was a chairman of the GMA Academy Council. I mean, this guy, he's deep and wide, man. I mean, this guy's history, his accomplishments, what he's done in the music business and in education is quite tremendous. And I think you're going to really enjoy Dan. He's funny, he's fun, he's just deep and authentic, and just really a privilege to have him here on the show today. So sit back, put on your Southern overalls, your Southern accent, grab some sweet tea, and join me and my good friend, Belmont University educator and incredible music biz veteran, Dan Keene. All right, Dan, welcome to the show, buddy.
Thank you, John. It's great to see you.
Yeah, after when I saw you, it was like, I think it's been 1,000 years.
Yes.
But I feel like
still recognized you.
I know,
looking
right?
Good.
You too, buddy. We're some of the pioneers of this thing, and you and I go back 30 years in the early days when I was with the Gaithers at Star Song.
Yep.
Really, Arios. I think I met you before even it was Star Song. Ron Griffin and Gary McSpadden and Bill and all those folks. Man, those are some sweet days, weren't they?
And the foundation, hanging out with people like that, learning from those kind of people is very, very important. They had a career-long impact for me. It was Randy Cox at Meadowgreen Music. And the writers there at the time, Michael W. Smith and Gary Chapman and Rich Mullins, being around those cats, and then coming over to Star Song to meet with Daryl Harris and Jackie Patillo, and all these people that had a profound impact on me personally, spiritually, and professionally.
Yeah. And a lot of them are still around. Daryl is pretty much
Daryl.
retired. I need to get him on the show. Man, he's a
He'd be a blast. Elwin Raymer was another mentor of mine.
Elwin
Still
and
around.
Linda.
He's active with CMPA,
Okay, yeah.
the Church Music Publishers Association. Still
Yeah.
doing stuff for them.
Elwin and Linda. And,
Yeah.
yeah, great people. Man, we have so many mutual friends that I wish we could just have them all on the show. I've had Randy.
Yeah.
I loved his show. I mean, he said that we'll challenge him on this maybe, but he said that the songs that you guys placed back in those days have sold on over 80 million records.
Wow.
So,
I believe it.
well, I mean, all the Amy and Michael. And
And then we
Stevie
had,
Curtis.
since we were an independent publisher, we'd get a lot of phone calls from people that had, like, if the label had an in-house publishing company, all right, and I won't name specific ones, but the artist would be obliged to fill up the record with in-house stuff, but if they didn't have a single, then they'd call Metagreen because we were independent. And so a lot of the times I'd be pitching for singles and get them because, of course, we had these great writers. So besides the writer-artists we just had great writers like Jeff Thurman and Lowell Alexander.
Yeah, we've had Lowell on the show.
I love him.
He's
And
great.
writers like that were just phenomenal. Billy Simon and people that just wrote these phenomenal, one-of-a-kind kind of songs and launched acts like Phillips, Craig and Dean and other acts like that with outside material. And those guys even wrote.
Right.
But we had a song called Turn Up the Radio that I pitched to Jackie Patillo when she was doing A&R for him that Jeff Thurman had written.
That is so awesome.
And it launched their career. So there was that kind of stuff, too, that was fun.
Yeah, well, I probably lose another star in my crown every time I say that I was part of putting them together back in the early days of Star Song. And it was right before I left, and I never really got to work with them, but I was part of the A&R team that was pulling them together. And we've had Dan on the show, and just, 25 years of their career, and it's crazy.
You know what? I confess, I don't know if they're still gigging. Do they still gig as a group?
Yeah, they are.
that's
They're doing the cruises, and I don't know how many dates a month they do, but they're all pastors. They're all still just amazing men of God that have maintained
to the calling.
True. So anybody that poo-poos contemporary Christian music, you can find whatever you're looking for, right? I mean, you can find the good or the bad.
Yeah.
But those are the good guys.
Yeah.
They really are. So. Wow. Well, listen, we could reminisce about all those other people, but we're really here to talk about you and your amazing career and what you have done. And everybody heard in the pre-roll, some of your accolades, some of the positions that you've held. And, what I'd like to just know is a little bit of the backstory and maybe just take us through, being at ASCAP is a big deal, I think, and being a VP at ASCAP, that seems like an even bigger deal, and all the very, very famous, very influential people that you have been around and that you are, so take us just a little bit through your career, maybe some of the highlights or something.
I'd be glad to, John. First of all, growing up, most of us have some kind of familial influence if we're involved in music, and such is true for me. My mother was a really good trained vocalist and accompanist. She sang classically, had this beautiful coloratura soprano voice. She grew up on a farm in Illinois, but her dad, my grandfather, encouraged her to get education and make something with this beautiful voice she'd been given. And so she went to college to do that and then moved to Denver from Illinois, which was a big deal back then. We're talking about late 40s, when women were still, for a woman to go out on her own and stuff is pretty radical. So she went out there and met my dad, who was a drummer. And so they married. So growing up, there was always music and percussion and stuff in my home. I mean, some of my earliest memories are of waking up on Sunday mornings and hearing Mom warm up for church. All those warm up exercises.
My daughter's heard that all her life too.
Yeah. So music was everything. And my parents got piano lessons for me. And I also played trumpet and French horn. I was a band nerd and a marching band nerd. Yay! Was even a marching band dad for my own daughters, which was a lot of fun here recently. So I did that, and then I got to pick up a guitar. and play that. And at this time, John, this is back when folk music was there. So it was Peter, Paul, and Mary, and, come catch a unicorn with me, and all that kind of goofy, folky stuff. And so I was doing that. And then the Beatles hit.
Oh, my
Holy moly, 1962. And boom. Like I was in 5th grade, and so if you're, just to save everybody from doing the math, I'm 66 years old. It's what, January?
I was already thinking that.
Yeah, it's January 15th, 16th, 2019, 66. So Beatles hit, and so, buddy, that was it. I started putting bands together in middle school and high school, and also was in theater. So I went off then and did all that. Played leads in the musicals because I had, like my mother, I have a really nice voice, and was grateful for that and developed it. Took lessons because that's an important message to anybody, which is if you've got gifts from God, pay attention and honor them. And I'm using the word honor because that's very broad. It can be interpreted a lot of ways, and I do that intentionally. But if you've got whatever God has given you, man, honor it. Mm-hmm. If that means take lessons, study, whatever. So did that, and I graduated from college with a theater degree, and I'd always played in bands even through college. I had a big Jimi Hendrix afro and these mutton chop sideburns, and excuse me while I kiss the sky, and all that stuff, man. So, but I went into dinner theater, and John, it was like a month or two into it, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want this, because all the older people in the shows were very bitter. They didn't have very good relationships because they'd always been on the road. Their families had broken up, and just it was a really lousy lifestyle that I hadn't realized till I got there. Which is it's one of the things that's valuable about college is you can study things like this. So I said, nah, I don't want to do theater. So I went back into music, went to bands, and auditioned for a theme park we had in Nashville called Opryland, USA. Oh, yeah. And this was, John, I had no silver spoon. I had no contacts. I auditioned cold. I drove up to a town, Covington, Kentucky, which is across the river from Cincinnati in Ohio. Auditioned cold, man, and got in. And there are just thousands and thousands of people that auditioned. So that was a gift from God. Yeah. And at the time, I've got to confess to you, I was an atheist. I'd grown up in a Christian home, but my parents split up when I was in 6th grade. My dad was an alcoholic, and so I was really mad at God. Mm-hmm. I was, oh yeah, God, I'm going to show you. I don't believe in you, kind of thing. So I was atheist at the time, but I still felt this calling. That's maybe a whole different podcast or something, but about that, which makes me valuable to college students now that I'm teaching at Belmont. Yeah. And that I can say to them, there's nothing you can tell me, kids, that will shock me. Right. If you want to talk about your faith and your struggles and what you're going through, I'm right there with you, because it was a big old search for me. So I got back into Opryland, did a show there, the country music show, although I'm not really a country guy. Then the next year they put a band together, and I was the lead singer in the band with this tall, beautiful blonde girl named Bonnie. Mm-hmm. We were the lead singers in this band, and it was this Englishman came down to the stage at the end of our show at Opryland and said, hey, I'd like to take you to London and make you stars. And we were like, yeah, buddy, don't forget to ride the roller coaster, and get some popcorn too, And his name was Leslie Lowe, and we tracked down Leslie Lowe, which was hard then because this is before the internet. Yeah, right. But we found out that Leslie Lowe ran a couple labels over in London. It was a real deal. So, So we returned his messages, sent us some money, to do a demo. We sent it back to him, and he signed us to a record label called Anchor Records. Okay. So I'm in England with one of my dear friends now, Ronnie Brooks, is a great guitar player. He and I have been friends since meeting in the dinner theater, actually, in 75. And we did this record, and Bonnie, the lead singer, and I fell in love. We were in England making this record. It was like Mickey, Rooney, Judy Garland, So going for that, because we had a record deal, it was easy to get a publishing deal. Right. So I signed with what was at that time Tree International Publishing, big independent Nashville publisher. Sony acquired it later, and Sony has built their their international empire around Tree. Exactly. And all their admin stuff is done here in Nashville at what used to be Tree. Yeah. So I was there, and that was good. I did all right. I got an ASCAP award over there on my wall for a country song that nobody's ever heard called Love Has Taken Its Time. But it got enough airplay that I got a little award for that.
There you go.
Doing okay. And so I was learning to do my demos. So I learned to be a producer. Okay. Gone from being a lead singer in a band to now being a producer on my demos. And I started singing jingles. And I have kind of this beer kind of voice, like Michelob Light for the winners kind of thing. So, John, I got hired to sing for beer, hardware stores.
There you go.
Trucks, some cars, but a lot of trucks, power tools, and all that kind of stuff. And pizza for some reason. Every single
that
pizza
makes
chain.
Sense. Beer and pizza.
Yeah, there you go.
Trucks.
There you go. Sung for every pizza chain. In fact, for Pizza Inn, I wrote this jingle as kind of a Springsteen-esque thing. And for the Pizza Inn convention in Vegas, they flew me out with some friends to perform. So at Caesar's Palace in a ballroom. So I can say I played Caesar's. You know?
You did,
As
man.
Pizza Inn.
That's not even on your bio.
Oh, no, not a hoot.
So is that like a 30-second spot?
Yeah. Get up at 8 in the morning and sing the Pizza Inn jingle live. That was it. So anyway, doing that, and in this process, Johnny became a Christian. It was really a matter of looking around after I'd been in Nashville a few years and realizing that all my friends and anybody I wanted to emulate, they were all Christians. I was like, wow, something's going on here, you know? There's a life force here that has a really good influence on these people. So I went, because I'd been, as I mentioned, an atheist, been in transcendental meditation and checked out Hare Krishna, and I didn't shave my head and wear the saffron robes, but I just looked everywhere and became a Christian at a Church of Christ. Isn't that hilarious?
Yeah.
We did a whiplash collar for that one, you know?
For real. For real.
Went from atheist to very conservative Christian. I'm now kind of morphed into a Methodist. But became a Christian. And the publishing company where I was writing, Tree, opened up a Christian music publishing. That was the beginning of Meadow Green.
Yeah.
So I was there, as I mentioned earlier, with Randy Cox at the helm and working with writers like Michael Smith and Rich Mullins and Billy Sprague, Song of the Year. And
Great
all
guys.
these great writers, Jeff Thurman and
He
Billy
passed
Simon.
away
Yeah, Jeff just passed away. I went to his funeral. So anyway, it was great. So I learned what the publishing thing was about. I was a song plugger. For those in your audience that don't know what that is, it basically, I can describe it as it's kind of an agent or a salesman. You have all the songs at a publishing house, and then you've got the artist that needs the songs. The song plugger pitches the songs, takes them to the artist and their representatives, producers, managers, record label people. Not that writers don't pitch their own. As you know, writers do pitch their own, but they're careful with it because there's a lot of rejection when you're pitching your songs. And if writers did that all the time, they'd curl up in a fetal position.
And die.
Yeah.
That's true.
And it takes time, too, away from writing. So the song plugger provides a very valuable service, and it saves the writer time and a lot of rejection. And really, pluggers I talked to then, the ratio is somewhere in the, like you'd make 90-some pitches to get one hold, which is a maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, so a lot of rejection. But I enjoyed it, getting around, trying to get around closed doors, a little bit of a private eye. And I was always carrying CDs or cassettes even back then. So if I was at a PTA meeting for my kids and I saw a Brown Bannister there for his kids or something, I could pitch him a song.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
So I was
At least
packing.
tell him
I was
about
packing.
it.
Yeah. So did that and continued to do jingles but man, I was having a good time with the jingle thing, getting flown to Dallas and Chicago and New York to do all these jingles, and of course in Nashville too. But this one time, Fruit of the Loom had done a nationwide search to find the new voice of underwear, and decided I was their guy.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. So they flew me to New York in the Village, and I had gray advertising, and I'm doing this big dramatic ballad. We fit America, we're Fruit of the Loom, you know. And the arranger had called me a couple weeks ahead to we're in my sweet spot, so we'd hit the right key to utilize all my money notes and stuff. And man, it was happening. I was in great voice, and everybody's in the booth. I can see them. They're all really tuning into this, and people are asking me for and my phone number and everything. I'm thinking, I have made it. I'm here in New York City, and I have made it. This is it. And so I'm punching the last line. We Fit America. We're Fruit of the Loom. I'm just getting all excited about it and tears in my eyes. And I thought, I had this kind of out-of-body moment of, Keen, you are getting all wrapped up in underwear, dude. You're getting all emotional, but you realize what's happening here, you know? For me, it was just the music, but really. Okay, so I started asking God, okay, as I said, I'd become a Christian. Is there something else you want me to do with these gifts you gave me? And that's when the Meadowgreen thing happened, and I went into the world of publishing, John. So did that for a while, and Meadowgreen then got bought and sold and stuff. It was part of a EMI system for a while, so I worked in that system. They had a partnership with BMG for a while, worked in that system. Then I went to pitching songs for independently for Hank Williams Jr. and Don McLean, the guy that wrote Bye Bye Miss American Pie.
Yeah, heck yeah.
Okay. And then I got a call from a wonderful matriarch in the music business named Connie Bradley, whose family is in the Country Music Hall of Fame, the Bradleys, part of the Nashville Sound and things. And Connie offered me a job at ASCAP. And boy, that was great. I loved it. I became a vice president there. But this is key. Something very interesting happened. I had this swanky job, expense account and assistant, and lots of fun, hobnobbing with big superstars, Garth Brooks and Alan Jackson and Reba McEntire and Amy Grant and anybody you can think of. And but there was something in my spirit, John, that was calling to me, and I just knew that I was supposed to do something else, but I couldn't identify it. So in my Sunday school class, we were reading a book called The Dream Giver by Wilkerson, the guy that wrote the Prayer of Jabez. Okay, The Dream Giver. I would encourage anybody who's looking, having an existential crisis about why am I here, what am I doing? This book did it for me, and not that thick. Easy to read. So in there, Wilkerson says, and a big shout out to Wilkerson if he ever hears this, changed the arc of my life. He goes, why did God make you? Because we all wonder that from time to time. Sometimes we suppress it because it's too big. Yeah, right. That's a big why. And why did God make you? And he starts out by going, what was your big dream when you were a kid? Well, for me, it was play wide receiver for the Denver Broncos. Well, that didn't happen, although I've still got my college eligibility if anybody wants to use me. And then after that, I once thought I wanted to be a rock star. That didn't happen. And then he takes you from there to, okay, think about this. What comes easy to you? Are there things you do in your life that you could do it falling off a log, you do it for free? Maybe you do it for free. What comes easy? And I realized for me, it's teaching. That as a kid, when my friends were doing their summer jobs, they were working, sacking groceries or helping coach, I was always a teacher. I was helping the teachers teach little kids to read, or Title I project, whatever it was. Anyway, working with kids, teaching all the time. And I even got my degree. It was in theater in Northern Colorado, but I also had gotten a teaching certificate along with it. Right. And broadened it actually to communications in theater. So in the back of my mind, that had been driving me, and I hadn't really consciously grabbed a hold of that. So I was like, oh my gosh, it's easy to do. I love it. And Wilkerson said, honor it, like I said earlier. So that meant I didn't feel like God was saying, stop everything you're doing. I know you've got this swanky job, but stop, go to Africa and teach little kids, It wasn't that kind of thing. But I also was getting this feeling of I didn't want to get to the end of my days and be before my maker and him say, I created you to be a teacher and you chose the music business? What kind of jerk are you? Left swipe, So I honor it. So I did. I started teaching Sunday school. And at ASCAP, of course, there are always songwriter workshops to do different educational efforts that I could undertake. So I did that, and came to ask a friend of mine at Belmont University that had a music business program. And this was in 94, John.
I was going to say this has been a while because you've been here.
This was 1994. For James Elliott, who runs the songwriting program here now. Do you guys need any help? He said, yeah, you want to teach publishing this summer? Boom. So I started doing that in 1994, and for 16 years I taught as an adjunct here at Belmont, one class a semester, because that's all I could handle. I had a full-time job at ASCAP, and it was a very demanding job, but I did an 8 o'clock class, which is kind of crazy because I did music biz stuff at night, but that's why I did it in the morning. I knew if I taught a night class, I'd be subbing it out all the time to do music biz things. And if I was going to honor my calling, honor my gifting, I needed to take it seriously. So I would get my butt up out of bed at 6 a.m. and go teach for 16 years,
Yeah,
buddy.
the kids had to get up.
Ooh, yeah.
That's their life, though.
Yeah, I know. So in that process, and that's all I felt like I needed to do at that time. Then I started getting this sensation, this calling, this in my spirit, what do you want to call it? This movement or this noise in my spirit about go get a master's degree. I'm like, what? I was 50-something years old, and I would talk to my friends about it. They'd say, why? You'll be 57 when you graduate. Why do that? And I thought, well, I'll be 57 anyway. Why not be 57 with a master's degree in education?
Yeah.
So I did it just out of obedience to God. And if I could, one of the main things I would encourage anybody to do that's listening to us is to be open to whatever little still voice is in your spirit calling you, and to honor it and follow it. Because a lot of times you're walking into the fog, but you do it. And the reasons why become apparent later.
Exactly.
So I went ahead and got this master's degree in education. And then that was in 2007. In 2010, ASCAP laid off or fired or whacked everybody over 40. And they won't admit to it, but it was pretty obvious that it was they're getting rid of the older people because we were expensive, major cost-cutting move. I had a very good attorney, and so things worked out quite well for me. I wouldn't have had to work for a year, and we're all still friends, and everything's all right. But right after that happened, Belmont said, and this is 2010, they said, hey, can you come teach full time? I said, I'd love to. They said, do you have a graduate degree? I said, as a matter of fact, I got my master's in education at Belmont. And so this is one of those things where preparation meets opportunity and God's will becomes apparent only later, you know?
Right.
So I was like, wow. And it's something that I had kind of been aiming at, really. Once I realized that I was made to be a teacher, one of the things I thought was, God, what if I could end my days at Belmont teaching? Wouldn't that be cool? So I had this plan, kind of subliminal, but it was there, and following my calling, and it ended up happening. So since 2010, and it's now 2019, I've been full-time at Belmont teaching music publishing, which is my field. And it's a dream job. I love it, John. It's my favorite job I've ever had. I enjoyed music publishing. I enjoyed the music industry, but I like this better.
Yeah.
I just love it. I feel like God's using me well, that all I've experienced and what I can bring in from my friends' experience, I can pour out on these kids and maybe save them 5 years of grief in their careers.
Wouldn't that be a gift? They don't even know. That would be a gift. They wouldn't even know how to appreciate it at the beginning.
Because I do. I share my successes and my failures with them, because, I heard a good saying, I don't know who it's from, who said, there is no failure as long as you learn something.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. Well, what an amazing career. What an amazing journey. But go back, whatever happened with you and Bonnie in England?
Oh,
did that ever turn into anything?
That record we did, it didn't happen. It was we were real slick and glossy. Out of the 6 people in the band, 5 of us sang. And so our arranger had done all these vocal arrangements where we sang the horn stabs, bop, bop, boo, ah, and string lines, kind of like Fifth Dimension, or like pentatonics.
Or First Call.
Yeah. Exactly. And so we did this record of real slick vocalese, right? When in the studio next to us were the Sex Pistols. The lead singer's in there in his underwear screaming out his vocals, and that's the music that the culture wanted. So our record just flopped, and exactly. So it never. I think they released a single, and it didn't connect, and so that
you're like up and away.
Yes. What's that? Up with people.
Exactly.
Wherever you go.
Man, why does that stick in our heads?
Oh, dude.
Oh, God. gosh.
So yeah, that was that. And yeah, again, my desire was to be a rock star, but didn't happen. And I can honestly tell you, I'm happy with what God has me doing. And I don't know what it would have been like to be a rock star, but I assume that this is better. It's God's will for me, and I could have easily been. I died of a drug overdose or something stupid. I don't know. We don't know. But all that to say, to any of these kids at Belmont, where I teach, I'm always listen for this call, listen for this still small voice, even if it doesn't make sense. Pay attention and just do what you can there. Because part of Wilkerson's book also is he says, "What's your big dream? If your big dream is something you can achieve on your own, it's not a very big dream. But if your dream needs God's intervention, that's a big one. That's where God can show His glory and." Let's go with that one. And so for me, it was economics. It was, God, I have a really good job. I'm the sole breadwinner in my family. We have twin daughters, young kids, and I have 2 older ones. I can't take a pay cut to teach. And God worked it out with providing a company that we acquired that my wife could run. And so I went ahead and He worked it out.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool?
He kind of does that.
He does.
Even if it doesn't look like it at the time. Yeah, absolutely.
But you know what? I still write, John. I had a band until recently that just plays because I need to do that also. That's a gifting I had. And I think, if you have a gifting, even if you're not making your living at it, again, that's another thing you need to honor and do it. Because that kind of is it's like this wellspring that nurtures everything in my life. I have to write and sing. So I do little writers' nights or jams with friends and write and put things up on Spotify and different things. And
it's great, man.
It's good for me. It's good for my spirit.
Yeah, you got to do it. So how many students do you deal with all the time?
John, I have from 30 to 35, from 25 to 35 in every class, and I have 4 classes per semester. So we're talking about 100 to 100 and 120, 30 students every semester, 3-4 months. Cycle through. Then I have 60 students that I advise academically, serve on committees and faculty senate and all those kind of things. So there's plenty to do.
Yeah, there is. And all those kids are filled with dreams and hopes and their own thing. And I'm sure that you see that many of them are still in the emulation phase where they're emulating people instead of being creatively original.
Because there are so few originals, really, But, and for them, my message, I do tell them my story. To, I hope, give them hope and see how things go. And also those that have arrived in Nashville and are like, I don't have what it takes. So that happens to a lot of us. When I moved here, I thought I was a guitar player. Then I was like, oh, man, these cats play guitar. Exactly. I'm a guitar flogger, I realized very quickly. So a lot of these kids are in school here, and about their 2nd or 3rd year, they're all of a sudden this moment of despair. What do I do? So I try and share that with them and help them realize that there are plenty of things you can do with your musical gifting besides hit songs. And that's not to say that I don't do my best to encourage the hit songwriters. Sure. And, we do everything. Guys like you and I, we know enough about what goes into hit songs that we can encourage people and try and draw hits out of them. But there's also this message of go for that, go for excellence, but also be aware of other ways you can use your giftings. Maybe you're supposed to sing at the nursing home down the street every once a month. Maybe you're supposed to write a song for your grandmother so she'll know how much you love her before she dies. Maybe you're supposed to write a song for your spouse. Or there are a lot of things we can do with our gifts besides just commercial success. So it's kind of a bifurcated thing of, yes, try and write commercial smashes, but also be true to your gifting, honor your gifting, and use your gift in your circle of influence.
Yeah.
And that seems to set some people free to, if they're not going to make a commercial success, they don't have to feel like a failure if they're using their gifting, because they're using their gifting to bless people. That's important.
Oh, it's huge. Huge. And now, while we're taking just a moment for everyone to go look up the word bifurcated.
It's not a cuss word.
No, you sure? All right. So tell me a little bit, because in your bio, you were elected to the board of directors of the International Bluegrass Music Association.
That's right.
And the board secretary for many years. Tell us about that. I hadn't had anybody on the show that Buddy Green, would be the closest to true bluegrass. So
yeah, and I was on the GMA board too, gospel music board. Bluegrass. There's a nasty rumor going around that I'm a bluegrass freak. It's not true.
Really,
I'm a super freak. I love bluegrass music, and I'm not that. And I'm not that crazy about country. Strangely, no. The authenticity of bluegrass is beautiful. For one, as an art form, it's indigenous to America. It was invented here in the Appalachian Hills. We've got several indigenous forms. Jazz is American. Broadway musicals. That's an American invention. Yeah, but bluegrass is one of our indigenous music forms, and it's a combination of a lot of different influences. Irish and Scottish, the fiddle tunes, guitar from all over the world. A lot of cultures have the guitar, the mandolin from Austria, Vienna mandolin. The lute they used to call it comes from that area. Guess where the banjo comes from?
Louisiana.
Nope. Africa, dude. Africa.
Oh, I knew that.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, that's
so.
Very
You've really got an African influence in what people tend to think of as hillbilly music.
No kidding. You'd never think of it.
Yeah, it's African instrument. And there were back in about 40, 50 years ago or more, there were black African-American string bands running around the country doing this string music that you can find nowadays with groups like the Carolina Chocolate Drops and the Ebony Hillbillies that are reawakening us.
Oh, man, I got to go check that out.
Yeah, African string band heritage. So anyway, I became attracted to bluegrass through Steve Martin.
No
the
kidding.
Comedian.
He's probably turned
He's
a lot of people toward it.
He's a world-class banjo player.
Yes,
Dude, I had gone and I was back in Colorado where I grew up. And I went to see the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band in concert. And there was this guy opening for me. He was a comedian in a white suit with an arrow through his head playing the banjo.
Steve Martin.
And like, what? And then the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band was doing this cool stuff, And so from that, I just moved me. It was authentic, and I loved the purity of it. And it's also virtuistic. You can't. It's not like a bunch of people from the marketing department put together a boy band or four hot chicks, and they go out and learn to sing and become a deal. You got to be good in bluegrass if you're going to achieve any kind of high profile or anything. So virtuosity is important, which I appreciate. And the instruments are unique, the sounds they make and the way they interact with each other. So I started getting in touch with the old masters, Earl Scruggs and Bill Monroe and artists like that, and just got into it, man. And way into it. When I was on my way here to Nashville, I got turned on to newgrass music in Kentucky by a band called Newgrass Revival that featured Sam Bush, who's one of the best mandolin players in the world. John Cowan played bass. John plays bass for the Doobie Brothers now, but at that time he was in that band, and Courtney Johnson on guitar, or Curtis Birch on guitar, Courtney Johnson on dobro. Maybe I have that backwards. Anyway, banjo was Courtney. Great newgrass bands out of Kentucky that kind of had played bluegrass with a rock and roll mindset. And so when I was at ASCAP, the opportunity came. We needed somebody to work that genre. And I was like, oh, please, let me, because I love it. So I love the harmonies. There's a lot of harmonic structure in bluegrass and instruments, and it's really fun and good. It's family oriented. You'll see when you go to big bluegrass festivals, especially if there's camping, like it's a multi-day festival, there are all these campsites. You'll see a bunch of families with their kids, and everybody in the family plays something, and they jam after the show at night. They go to their campsite and they jam. Then they move from campfire to campfire, jamming with other people and other families, and it's really a participatory art form. I like that too. The fans, most of them play. And there's bluegrass gospel, as you know. There's a lot. Ricky Skaggs has done some great bluegrass gospel things. Buddy Green, whom you mentioned. There are a lot of really, really cool. Daly and Vincent. There's one guy, I can see his face. Doyle Lawson is a bluegrass gospel guy. A lot of great old gospel songs in bluegrass.
Yeah, I grew up on that. My dad and mom were bluegrass musicians.
Oh, I never knew
not
that.
professional or anything, but just in the home. We grew up with
John.
everything from Flat and Scruggs to Mahler. We had a very eclectic. My dad was a very eclectic listener, and that served me later in my publishing career because I can listen to anything and pretty much appreciate it. Even if I can't dissect it, I can appreciate it and kind of put it where it needs to go. And
that's good.
So, but now I think last year on your Facebook you were Facebooking about a big festival that's in Franklin, and I didn't make it to that. What is that festival?
John, that's called Pilgrimage.
Okay.
Now, the Bluegrass Festival I went to last summer was in Lyons, Colorado. That's called Rocky Grass.
Oh, okay.
And there, bluegrass in Colorado, there's some great stuff. There's a Telluride Bluegrass Festival, which is really more progressive than it is bluegrass. There's a lot of kinds of Americana music and even rock you'll hear there. But then they have a festival called Rocky Grass. It's an organization called Planet Bluegrass in Boulder. And they have all these festivals. That's always big old fun. Then the Pilgrimage in Franklin is wonderful. It's a pop rock. It's got kind of like Bonnaroo for old people, or it's like a Woodstock for guys my age that want to revisit Woodstock.
But you kind of go stage to stage,
yes,
right? Yeah,
and it ends. It starts at like 11 o'clock and ends at 9. No camping, so it keeps it from getting too rowdy.
Right.
So people go home at 9, get a good night, just come back and hey, go
Ends
for
at
more.
9.
And the artists are phenomenal. The lineup, I love it.
I hadn't heard of it till you're Facebooking, and so then it's like, okay, I got to plan on
you'd
that
love
next
it.
year.
Go.
So
it's going to be in
sounds great.
September, and their lineup is always just great.
Yeah.
Just
Wow. Yeah.
Pop rock. I don't know if they've had any gospel. I'm trying to think. I remember Band of Heathens played 2 years ago on Sunday. That did not escape me, the irony of that. But I'm trying to think. I don't think they had any out and out bluegrass. Although they do on Sunday mornings, they'll have people do, play gospel tunes and stuff. So.
Well,
Excuse me, but Mavis Staples played 1 year. So there's your gospel.
There's your gospel. There's your iconic.
Oh my Lord!
There,
staple singers. Yeah, it was great.
Well, let's go back a little bit to because you were talking about at ASCAP when you got to work with the newgrass genre. You brought some amazing people to ASCAP that weren't signed there. Were there some stories or memories or favorite things that happened at that time?
I think in terms of virtuosity, one thing that was wonderful to be a part of was the band Nickel Creek, who were BMI at the time, and I switched them to ASCAP, which is hard work. But those guys have gone on. It was a brother and sister, and a guy named Chris Thiele, Sarah and Sean Watkins.
Thiele
Chris
is
Thiele.
a monster.
You would, I think, anybody that knows of him would argue that he is arguably one of the best mandolin players ever.
Ever.
I mean, Sam Bush that I talked about earlier is one of them, but Thiele is he'll do Bach. He'll play Bach and
it's crazy.
All Mozart stuff on the mandolin. He's amazing.
Yeah.
And so Nickel Creek was a lot of fun, and then from that they do stuff from time to time. But he went on to form a group called the Punch Brothers.
Yeah,
that's very progressive. That does stuff. So that life, I enjoyed working with them. I enjoyed working with Ricky Skaggs. He was an ASCAP member. I didn't bring him there. He was already there at ASCAP, but I got to work with Ricky a lot, and that was just really rewarding. What a fine man.
Yeah.
Fine man. A family group called Cherry Homes. Very interesting. A mom and dad and 5 kids, and they lived they're almost like wilderness people, kind of. They lived they were in, what was it, California or Washington, somewhere in the Northeast, very secluded.
They're all wilderness out there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And so they all grew up playing this and had a good run. They were the IBMA, you mentioned earlier, International Bluegrass Music Association. They were the entertainers of the year one time.
Wow.
And so that band was a whole lot of fun. And then the folks decided to step out of the way. So the kids are all now spread around in their own different bands and doing some good things.
That's awesome.
It's been fun.
Yeah. Wow. Kind of reminds me of Bill Walliver and Bill and Robin
exactly.
and Annie Moses
Annie
Band.
Moses Band. Similar deal.
Similar
deal.
Man,
I
they're
love
just
that
taking
band.
off.
They were ASCAP.
Yeah.
And I worked with Annie at the very beginning when Annie Moses Band was being launched and stuff. Tried to help them out. That was fun.
good people. Bill and Robin have been around forever, and just to see their kids.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought them up.
take
That's
off,
a good
you know.
example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get them on the show. Hint, hint. If you
good.
guys are listening, or your PR people,
Well,
would love to
and
do that.
let me, as I mentioned, I share with my Belmont students some of my mistakes. And I will say this with Annie. I was trying to convince her to use more of her lower register. Because I was like, Annie, I think you're beautiful. You guys are so talented. You've got legit instrumental skills. The soprano, your high soprano, try and use more of your mid range, and would play in her other artists that had been successful that way. And she just didn't want to. And I was like, okay, help yourself. Well, obviously it worked. She was right. I was wrong, And that's, I think, the message there for our artists that are listening is take advice from people, but the Bible says seek the wisdom of many counselors. I would never put my career decisions on one person's shoulders. I think it's wise to consider a lot of different things. And Annie felt like, no, her highest soprano, lyric soprano, was the way she needed to go. She stuck with it, and it's working great. And again, pal, not that I didn't like it. I just thought it would be more commercial if she used her mid-range, and obviously she knew better than I, and I'm glad she did. There's an example for you.
Yeah, no, man, we all have our career faux pas. I turned down Ray Bolt's Thank You.
Oh,
I did. Yeah,
ouch.
Guilty. I know, right?
Ouch.
I know. I just there's no plausible explanation for that. I just didn't get it.
Yeah, sure.
And Bill Gaither, I forget which one he turned down. I think he turned down. I don't know if it was "We Shall Behold Him" or some big song, back then. But
yeah, thankfully it does happen to everybody if they're honest.
Humbling.
But yes, very.
It is a humbling thing. One of the things that we deal with all the time are people that so strongly desire to be successful in the industry, and I just, we were talking about this earlier, singing at the nursing home or writing a song for your grandma, not just
sing
being
at school,
stuck
sing
on
your
the
kids'
commercial.
school.
But I think it's a worthy thing to return to and talk a little bit about, because you and I have lived through probably several paradigm shifts, but certainly the digitalization of music, the shrinking of the music business, and yet an explosion of an interest in songwriting and artistry. That it's just like the old paradigm cannot serve this global groundswell of song. So what do you have to say about that, Mr. Dan?
Yes, sir. Well, you insightfully noted the explosion. Music consumption has not died down. In fact, it's grown. So as certain areas of the music business kind of imploded, and I want to emphasize certain areas, that didn't mean that the public didn't want it. It just wanted different things done different ways. And so you had, for the record companies, for example, their whole business model was built around selling CDs in the 90s when this all blew up. They'd gone from vinyl, as we all know, to cassette and 8-track tape and all this, and CDs and then downloads. But record companies, they were very singularly focused on CDs and then tried to hang on during the download era, but that was it. So while a lot of people predicted their utter demise, they did not go away. Most of them, I think, are about 25% as big as they were. But at this point, they're doing fine in that they control radio. So if they have an agreement, just it's not anything collusion or something, but they've just worked out a system with radio that radio likes and they like. So if you're in a genre like country or Christian music, or what else has to have radio, top 40? If you really want to be huge, like Adele or something, you got to have radio. And so there you have to go through a major label. But other than that, you don't have to. And so that's what happened there. The labels didn't go away, but they do control radio. The way that things are done now with internet and aggregators like CD Baby that you can go to that can distribute your stuff digitally for you enabled a lot more people to get to be in the business, but they had to do all the work. The problem with DIY is, do it yourself is right. You got to do it all yourself. And marketing, you got to draw attention to yourself because it's such a crowded field. There's so much out there. So getting attention is even harder than it used to be. But you can at least take the initial steps on your own, whereas you used to have a label to do that. So I like that. I tell my students this, John, I hope this will be helpful. Because we used to say in teaching, here's what the record industry looks like. Here's what the music industry looks like. It's a box. Here are the plugins in the box. Find the plugin you want, go. Well, that box blow up. It blowed up good, right? Blew up. Blowed up good.
It is obliterated.
Yeah, so there's no one paradigm or model you can look at. So for now, you got these kids that are spending a bunch of money to come study at Belmont. My advice to them is, let's not try and identify what the music business is. Let's identify needs of creative people, needs of consumers in terms of music, and what role can you play in bridging that gap? Again, what are the needs of creative people and the businesses they own? What are the needs of the consumer? Can you play a role in bridging, putting needs together, bridging the gap, which seems to free them up a lot? Because some of the kids, they'll go, oh, I want to be a publisher, or I want to be an engineer, audio engineer, and those jobs already exist, and so there's places you go to try and do that. But then there are other things where somebody will identify a need and nobody's doing it. That's the fun stuff. And I'll give you an example. Back a couple decades ago, after Napster clobbered us, and then we started having iTunes was successful, so we started kind of getting back, we meaning record labels. Publishers did better. Well, you know what? Let me take a left turn here for a second. In all these downturns, John, publishers have not suffered as badly because we have content, we have songs, and people have to have songs.
Exactly.
So that's a nice thing. The publishers and the touring industry always tend to not dip as low as others in the music industry. Where's that going? Identifying needs. So we had, for a while, when the internet came about, there were people using publishers' songs and songwriter songs without getting permission because they could. It was rampant. And publishers were like, we don't know what to do about this. This internet thing that we don't quite understand yet, people are using our music. So some college-age kids went to a publisher and said, hey, we're really good with the internet. We've made these bots that can crawl the internet and look for identify songs. Give us a list of your 100, and I'm making the number up. I don't know if it's 50 or 100, but give us a list of your top earning songs. We'll crawl the web all day, and we'll find them. And if there's somebody that's using it without your permission and they're not getting any attention, let's let that one go. But if somebody's getting a lot of attention, we'll tell you who they are and where they are, and you can do one of two things. You can either issue a takedown notice, or better, you can monetize it. Contact them and let's help them monetize. Well, heck, so that was huge. Of course, again, meeting the needs. The publishers say, and the writers are saying, people are using our songs without permission and we don't know how to find them. And the consumers are saying, we want to do this. It's too easy and convenient. And the people in the middle going, okay, we can't stop you from doing it. Let's monetize it. Here's an easy way by adding ads. And now, YouTube and other sites now have it's a one-click thing where you monetize something and it attaches ads to it and the money starts flowing. So, there are companies now that have dedicated employees to do that. There are companies that it's such an established practice now that you can outsource it to companies that you don't have to put them on your payroll, but people are crawling the web, finding stuff for you, and you can monetize it. So that's a job that wasn't here 20 years ago.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, and now it is. And so there's things like that, again, where it's like, I'll add one other thing into the equation, John, and that is to say, identify the needs, and then when you're trying to figure out your role, start with your passion. What do you love? For those kids, it was computer stuff. But what's your passion? Do you love marketing? Do you like the audio sounds? Do you like the lyrics and the ins and outs of writing? What is your passion there? Okay, can you use that passion to meet some needs that then you can monetize and turn it into a job?
Right. So
make
key.
sense?
Oh, it's total, man. I mean, it's totally key to find what gets you jazzed, so you won't burn out, and you'll do great. You know, because not everybody's passionate about what you're passionate about.
No.
Yeah. So I'm just really doing a lot of education here with NCS and the podcast and everything that we do.
I'm glad you are. Yeah.
Thanks, man. With our membership and our events, weekend intensives, and our 8-week online boot camp.
Fantastic.
And we deal. I'm helping people. I'm very open and blunt with this. I say what I'm trying to do is teach you to think like a pro songwriter, because there's a certain way that pro songwriters think. You know, they learn to self-edit.
It's called craftsmanship too.
Right, exactly.
Same thing the way a potter learns the skills to take this blob of clay and make a beautiful vase.
Exactly. And so and I can always tell when someone becomes passionate about it. And that was trying to tie that into what you're saying, because the others, they just have this fantasy of being a writer, but they're not really passionate about words. They're not passionate about finding amazing ideas and amazing hooks. And, they kind of fantasize about this thing, but they don't quite know how to wrap their heads around that. And so, but I can tell when people light up, when they get passionate about it.
And when they realize, there's work required.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people feel like it's just a gift from God. Back in when I was a Christian music publisher, I would start critiquing a song with a beginning songwriter who would say, Dan Keene, you can't criticize this song. God gave it to me.
Totally.
And my response was always, well, God gives us bad breath in the morning. Shall we brush our teeth? It's like, yeah, the inspiration comes from God, but there's craftsmanship. You need to dedicate. There's work. You got to learn the craft. It's like any other art form, John. You know this. If you're a painter, potter, a dancer, there are things about the craft. You're inspired, but you learn how to craft it so that people can receive your message easily.
It's true.
Very
it's
important.
True. I didn't dare say it, but I would think when somebody would say that to me, I would think, well, he gave that to you because he didn't want it anymore.
I know all kinds of snarky stuff that goes through our heads when people say that, but
you don't say it out loud. You don't at all.
And John, I want to back up a little and look at the what you're doing with NCS. There's a great example of meeting needs. The company. How old's the company?
We're going into our 4th year.
Okay. So it wasn't around 5 years ago.
Oh, no.
But there's a deal of, the paradigms are shifting. Where are needs? What are needs that need to be met? And you found one that suits your passion. So there's another good example of trying to meet needs with something you're passionate about.
Yeah, and back. Thank you. And back to what we were talking about a moment ago with digitalization and the whole YouTube thing. I don't think there's ever been a better time to be a Christian communicator than right now,
dude.
And so to look for these, established companies to say, well, if I don't get on a label, I'm a failure, that's just a total misnomer. No. And then we all know people that have been on Idol or The Voice or wherever, and they're struggling, and they haven't quite figured it out, built the tribe. I wanted to quote Seth Godin in his book, This is Marketing. Seth of Tribes, Blink, Tipping Point, Purple Cow. Great books. And in his new one, This is Marketing, he says, if you can build a tribe of 1,000 raving fans, you can have a great life.
Long career.
And that's what I just want these people to get. You know? And would you agree with that?
Yes, I would. And there's Ralph Murphy, who I worked with at ASCAP, internationally known music executive, former publisher and stuff, and songwriter. Ralph, his advice there was also in terms of, he said his grandfather said one thing to him that changed his life. That was when they would go fishing. And he would say, Ralph, if you want to catch fish, you got to think like a fish. Where do fish hang out? Oh, in the shadows, in rocky crags. And think like a fish and you'll catch fish. So he transferred that thought into songwriting, meaning, who are you trying to reach? And this is especially relevant and valuable for Christian songwriters. Who are you trying to reach? Is it a certain denomination? Is it an age group of Christians? Who are you trying to reach? Where do they hang out? Give them what they need where they hang out. And that, thinking like a fish, thinking like a Christian worshiper, or a Christian that goes to coffee shops, or a Christian that loves rock and roll, whatever it is. think like those fish. Who are they? What is the bait? What will they bite on? What do they want? And create that. Give it to them. I thought that was pretty valuable.
That's awesome. And Ralph also has the inverted pyramid. Did you ever see that graphic?
I don't think so.
It's an inverted pyramid.
Yeah,
and you've
little
got
points at the bottom.
Yeah, and your agents and your artists and your PR and then ultimately the world. But the bottom of the inverted pyramid is the song. Mm-hmm. And everything is built on the song.
Oh, it's true. That Nashville Songwriters Association motto, it all begins with the song. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's real catchy and creates cute bumper stickers, blah, blah, blah. There's a truth in there.
Yeah, exactly.
John, that's important. It all begins with the song. If we don't have the songs, you got nothing. I mean, we've in our culture, we've designated singers like Adele or Celine Dion or Sandy Patty to be the designated singers, and that's not wrong. That's fine. Mm-hmm. So they're the singers, and then the rest of us become kind of spectators. Well, if you have songwriters but not designated singers, just songwriters, can you have a music business? Yes, because a songwriter, you've been to enough writers' nights to know that songwriters in their charming way can warble their songs out that it's endearing and means something. And then there are writers who have great artist voices. They could be artists. They just don't want the lifestyle. So if you have the songs, you can have a music business. If you have designated singers, on the other hand, but no songwriters, you don't have an industry. Mm-hmm. So that inverted triangle is spot on. It all starts, I would look at it as terms of a garden, and the seeds are the songs, and then they sprout, and everything that blooms and grows, and all the vegetables and the flowers, everything, they come from the songs. Mm-hmm. Without it, you got no garden.
Mm-hmm. Well, what would you say as we kind of wrap up, Dan? And this has been very rich. Good. I'd like for you to comment on two things. One is to be a little more specific about any of our listeners, and we have people of all ages that are tuning into the podcast. So tell us, what's the main thing you would say about Belmont, because it's such an amazing school. Mm-hmm. It's grown so much in the last decades, and then also, what would you say to people that are just kind of outside the Nashville bubble, and maybe to put a little bow on what we've been talking about today? It's been so awesome today, man. Thank you.
So, it's a treat. Good to see you and to get a chance to be used again by God. I hope it's been helpful to the folks.
Oh, absolutely.
John, Belmont has a music business, but it was one of the first colleges, universities in the United States to have a music business program. That was created by a guy named Bob Malloy, may he rest in peace, that had a heart for kids, but wanted to equip creative people with the business knowledge so they wouldn't get ripped off. Because as you know, rock and roll history is full of people getting ripped off by bad contracts and stuff. So his idea was to educate creative people, and he was a Christian. Belmont is a Christian school, in a Christian environment to protect them, and also for those kids that love music but aren't artists, to equip them to be part of the process and do it with skill. Mm-hmm. And so this was, I don't think there were even 2,000 students here when it started. Now we have about 8,000 something students. The music business program has grown to include now music business, a songwriter degree, audio engineering degree, a film school. We have a 3-year-old film school and here in the building is a full-on sound stage, motion capture studio, 37 editing bays, and all kinds of cool stuff. Entertainment industry studies. So we've broadened out beyond just music into the whole entertainment business, because we saw that music and video were kind of becoming intertwined.
Totally.
Our kids, when they go look for music, they usually go to YouTube to discover music. They don't just go for audio. So Belmont has this program that took hold, and it's been extremely successful. It is still very much dedicated to being a Christian environment. That doesn't mean put your head in the sand, Christian. We're wide open. We look at other religions and encourage the kids to go to clubs where the music is, but be sane, don't hurt yourself. So it's a Christian environment, which is unique in other music business programs. And we have kids that are a lot of graduates that are running companies now. Right. It's old enough that, Warner Chappell here in Nashville is run by Ben Vaughn, who is an alum. This Music, one of the biggest, most successful indie publishers, run by Rusty Gaston, who is a Belmont grad. Word Music had A young lady, here's another example of meeting needs. A young lady named Janine Appleton, who formed Word Country. She went to the folks at Word and said, yes, we're a Christian company. We want Christian people, but we have some of our Christian writers that want to write country hits. I've got the connections. Let's do that. So she started Word Country that became very successful. And now Curb bought that whole entire company and elevated. Janine's done such a good job. They've elevated her to run all of the Curb publishing enterprises, and she was in my publishing class. So we have a lot of success stories.
That's awesome. Yeah. Janine's great.
It's a good place to come because it's in a music center, and there's just no substitute for that. You're here in a music center, and you're learning in the environment. And the way the internships work, a lot of our students will start interning when they're juniors. By the time they graduate, they've interned and been offered a job. So those internships turn into jobs. That's a good thing. Also, I think it's wise and I've said this to my own kids, I have 4, to get a college degree. Because one thing that you want to do when you're young is make options for yourself later. So if you have a college degree, you may not use it for the first 20 years of your career. Then all of a sudden, something changes. You age out of the industry you're in, or your skills change, or your passion changes. You're like, I don't want to do what I spent the past 20 years doing. Well, if you have a college degree, you've got an option to go to either to grad school or to you've got something else that you can use. So I think it's a good tool to prepare yourself. Folks that are older in life and are now, you and I know people that are like, they're about to retire and they're like, dang it, I have always wanted to write Christian songs. What's stopping me? I'm going to go now.
Oh, yeah.
Very valuable. There, you might want to come to college if you can, but there are also things like I mentioned Ralph Murphy. He's got a website called Murphy's Laws that can be very valuable in pursuing that. So I want to encourage those folks too. If you're a lifelong learner, which is a good thing, keep learning, keep writing.
That's one of the niches we hope to fill, is with our 8-week online boot camp. We have a lot of older people. We serve people that are in their 40s, 50s, 60s.
John, that's beautiful. I'm so glad.
The Lord told me to serve who he brings to me. And so I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I'm glad you did.
We're in that niche too.
To get around to that.
Yeah, we're in that space,
We've taken people that it's a calling. Your people are responding to this calling finally. Because it's never too late, as you know. Never too late to respond to that calling.
Well, it's beautiful to see what's happening here and to know you're a part of it and to know your heart and not just an amazing career, but now you're pouring into the upcoming generations. And
it's really a ministry, really. Let you in on a little secret. I'm 66 and it's a ministry.
Oh my
Some
gosh.
people think it's a job, but
Wow. So what would you say to, I know you said a lot, you've dropped a lot of content already, but is there one thing to sum up our interview today that you'd like to leave the people with?
Wow. It is bad luck to build a campfire in your lap. Right? You want something else?
There you go.
There you go. I would go back to the major thing that I've been talking about the whole time, buddy, which is listen to that voice inside you. Follow that calling, especially if it doesn't make sense.
There you go.
That's a good one.
Right.
Follow that one. But be cautious, be smart about it. But God's talking to us. So, follow if you hear something in you that's calling you to do something, whether it be a songwriter or something else, pay attention to it and try to find a way to honor it. Does that work?
Well done. Dan Keene, thanks so much, man.
Thank you, John. Great to see you.
Thanks for listening in today on the Song Revolution podcast. If you're wanting to take your songwriting to the next level, be sure to jump over to NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com right now to check out all the valuable resources that we have there for you, especially NCS membership, where you can go deeper into a community of like-minded songwriters and tap into encouraging blogs, videos, powerful masterclasses, and a whole lot more to get you where you really want to go. I'll see you next time.